So we have a chair here too, an empty chair. We got two, so it looks like maybe even three. Guys, we'll go ahead and start right up. I have to say, first of all, if you know me personally, you know this means the world to me that you guys are here. I don't say that jokingly. I don't say that as a thing. I am literally so happy you guys are here this morning. Thank you so much for being here at 8:30. Early. Please come on in. We've got a couple seats. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys so much. Can we, just to humor me, do you mind if we do a countdown before we start this thing? And then I'll do the whole welcome here, and if you can do a round of applause, it's strictly just for me because it's, can we do a countdown please? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the best teaching strategies based on neuroscience and behavioral psychology. Thank you. So I want to tell you, so my name is Matt Thomas. I'm an English teacher. I was an English teacher for 19 years. I teach high school English, though I've taught ninth grade. I taught all the grades. You know how we do that? We teach all the grades, but then we find what's really our niche. Ninth grade, ELD 3s and 4s mostly. For the past year and a half, I've been an instructional coach for my district. So that's the role that I'm in now. So let me ask, just to find out who's in the room. Some call them coaches, some TOSAs. Where's our coaches or TOSAs in the room? Guys, can we give a round of applause? Being on the other side now, I'm dude, I don't know about you, I do more work now as an instructional coach for my district than I did as a classroom teacher. I'll explain why as we go on. Where's our elementary school teachers? Round of applause. Holy cow, we got a round of applause. Dude, that was a quiet round of applause. Can we give a huge round of applause? Holy cow. So, can we, middle school teachers? Extra round of applause for that. High school teachers, where's my brother and sister? Thank you guys. Okay, and I'm a little fuzzy on who shows up to the CTA. Counselors, and we're counselors here, because I know counselors are part. Oh, awesome! Round of applause for counselors. Nurses, librarians, they're all part of it as well. Okay, other, I don't know who else, the others. Please, round of applause for the others. So I'll tell you, so I use round of applauses a lot in my class, and I do that because I want my students to feel valued. Because so okay, let me tell you this. Oftentimes the way the speech that I'm giving, you can say, there's going to be things where I just go, pew, and I kind of go off a little bit. And it's just because it jumps on my head. It's just kind of how I am. I'm like Lady Gaga, I was born that way kind of thing. So bear with me and be patient. My students know that about me. But I feel like we need to value our students, give them the props they deserve. Oftentimes in education, it's so punitive. You need to work on this, you need to work on that. Teachers, we get that too, right? You can be a great teacher, but you're nervous for your observation. And then admin goes, well, we always have to find something for you to work on. We're like, seriously? What about the great things that we do? Reminding our students the great things that we do. So I do use round of applauses a lot in class. Not all the time. You do too much, it loses its effect. But if I'm in class and a student gives a great response, I'm like, dude, that's amazing. Let's give Johnny a round of applause. And then we give Johnny a round of applause. There are things that we learn as teachers, or that we've taught all these years, and a student says something that I've never heard of. I'm like, that's amazing, round of applause. Now I'm smarter because of the student. So I use round of applauses a lot, but I will give you some disclaimers before I get started. Okay, so I do talk fast. It's not because I'm nervous, it's because I'm excited. I legitimately love, when you find something that you can't just shut up about. People ask you a question, you're like, bleh, and you're like, I'm sorry I asked. This is it. Neuroscience, neuroeducation, neurodidactics. That's the thing that I just keep talking about. I am excited, not nervous. I will tell you, I am an introvert. Most people don't believe me because I do this stuff, but there's a reason why I do it. I do it because I'm interested. And I'm going to tie that into the presentation as we go on. Interest is the reason I'm here. As soon as you all leave and I'm driving to the airport, I'll be in silence because I need to recharge. But that's what I do. We'll talk about that too. I do get tunnel vision. I'm telling you about that. My students know this about me. I have this presentation kind of memorized. I've taught it, I've done it a lot. But the reason I'm telling you is I'm terrible at stopping where I'm at, addressing someone's question, and then starting back up. Right. So if I'm like, blah, 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 and someone's like, how does the, sorry, see, I just lost it. How does the, basal ganglia react to the, remembering certain things? I'm terrible at stopping, answering that question, and then coming right back. So the reason I say that is, can you please hold off on any questions until the end? And I swear I'll be here as long as you want to address anything. Today's about less research and more answers, because I don't want to put you all to sleep. The worst is like, you know, test scores, blah, blah, blah. Let's look at the 7 pages that supports that with research. I'm just going to tell you the answers, and then let's move on and just keep. And if you want to look at the research, you can go to I'll give you the YouTube channel link. You can go to all my research that I've done. You can look at the research there, but I just don't want to bore you with that stuff. So let's get right into it. Today, too, so I'm a big believer in this. Anything that you can use from a workshop and apply it to your own teaching is great. The way I do it, it might be different than the way you do it, and it's all good. So don't feel like you have to take what someone else tells you and recreate that. Just do it in your way. So I'm really big on that. I'm also, in education, we get told a lot of what to do. You need to do this strategy. You guys, you realize, for those, where's our veteran teachers? I don't know, 8 or 10 years or more. Okay, you know that there's a cycle education. Every couple of years, it's like, hey, use this, it's great. Hey, use that. And we're still looking for it. It's because I don't think we ask why enough. Someone says, hey, do this. You're like, why? Because it's a great strategy. Why do you say that, and how do you know that? Because it's in a book. Anybody can write a book. It worked for my friend. Really define how it works means. What does that mean? And so just because someone likes it, please come on in. We've got some seats there over there. Just because someone likes it doesn't mean it works. It just means they like it. So I think as teachers, we need to ask why a lot. Especially, I don't know if you noticed, it's like, blinding. Especially to our admin. No disrespect to admin, they're being told what the district is sending out. We do have an empty seat there if you'd like, ma'am. So it's okay to ask why. Why do you say that? And I will say this, out of all the research I've done, I've noticed this. Anybody can say according to research. It like lands instant credibility. According to research, blah, 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 doesn't mean it's true. It just means according to research. They may misinterpret the research. So anyway, here's what I'm going to give you today. The QR code is going to be throughout the presentation. You don't need to get it now. You can sit back and relax. I'm going to give you the slideshow with all the video access that I have in here. I'm going to give you access to my YouTube channel with over 80 videos that highlight the best teaching strategies based on neuroscience and behavioral psychology. I'm going to give you this recorded presentation right now so that you don't have to take notes unless you want to. Oh, thank you. Thank you. You guys, thank you. Thank you. I just want you to sit back and enjoy. Like a good movie. Like, don't analyze it. Just sit and enjoy. I'm also going to give you some resources. I'm really big on staying in communication. At the very end, I'll give you my email. For you coaches, why are we each of us doing the hard work? Can we just share each other's stuff? So I'm big on that, like sharing all of our resources. I'm also going to give you some lesson plans, sample lesson plans you can do and apply to all the core subjects, math, science, history. The other one, English. Mine, sorry. You know, English. Okay, so I'm going to give you my background in this because I think it's important for you to see how, what lens I'm looking through this. So before I was a high school teacher, I owned a kickboxing school. I was a martial arts dojo owner for 10 years. I owned it in high school. I was 18. I turned 18 in February, actually in a few days. Not 18. You did the math. So I turned 18 in February when I was in high school. I signed a lease, opened up my martial arts dojo. I was going to be a professional fighter, but there was no money in it, so I opened up a school, and it doesn't matter why. Anyway, so I'm 18, opening up my business till 9, going back, finishing high school, etc. And just like any small business owner, I read a lot of small business books, like how to be a better business owner, right? And a lot of it's behavioral psychology, because you want to make sure, first of all, you have your clients, we have our students. You want to make sure your clients feel valued and appreciated when they come to you. You want to make sure that they know that what you're teaching them is valuable. You want it to be when they're at home, they want to look forward to coming back to you, and you don't want them to go to a competitor. Right? So that's what I kind of grew up in, right, with behavioral psychology. Owned a business for 10 years, and actually it was a student that got me to be a high school teacher. I had a student named Kevin. He was a very angry teenager. His dad was not in the picture, and he loves heavy metal. I'm a big heavy metal guy. And he came to class one day. Oh, shout out to the heavy metal people. Where's our heavy metal podcast? Yeah, so he came to class one day. He was angry, and I'm like, Kevin, what's up? And he goes, I hate my school. I'm like, why? He goes, I hate my teachers. He goes, they don't get me. And he goes, I wish you were my teacher. Hey, bud, come on in. We got some extra seats. He goes, I wish you were my teacher. You get me. And I'm like, that's it. Like, it was an epiphany. Like, I'm going to, sell my dojo and become a high school teacher. And that's literally what happened. Put myself through school, started teaching, and that's where it is now. And so I look at it this way. I think that being a high school teacher, or I should say being a classroom teacher, is the closest thing to owning a small business other than doing it. Because you have your clients, right? You've got your students, you have your admin, you have your parents. You want to make them feel valuable and appreciated when they're in class. You want your students to look forward to coming back to you every day. And you want to make sure that they can apply what they learn in class into the real world. Because imagine me as a kickboxing teacher, and I'm like, yeah, do this, do that. And then they go out on the street and then they can't apply it. Like, that'd be terrible. So as an English teacher, I want to make sure my students can apply what they learned in class. So it's just like running a small business, and quite honestly, let's be fair. When we're in the classroom, it's kind of our show, right? We have our principal and our parents, to answer to, but we're really the business owners in there. So that's how I looked at it. So when I sold my business and became a high school teacher, I had immediate success because I just kind of ran it like a business. I won multiple teaching awards, including Teacher of the Year. My students were the top test takers in the district for 16 years in a row, per their demographic. Now I say that just to add credibility, not to brag or anything, because I'm not a teach to the test guy. Tests do not there's no long-term, sorry guys, I'm screwing this up. Tests do not support IQ at all. They're not accurate indicators of IQ, and they're not accurate indicators of long-term success and happiness. What tests are an easy way for us to just compare student scores. That's all it is. So I'm not into tests. I think their success is more a byproduct of how they enjoyed my classes. I also got an insane amount of parent praise. In this slideshow, if you see anything underlined, it's a link to a video. And it's a video on me telling people how I got so much parent praise. I became my students' favorite parent. I became my students' parents' favorite teacher because of this one thing. Sorry. And I'll give you the secret. I won't explain it so we can move on. But it's literally video email messages to the parents once a week. So rather than sending emails, because what happens is, so this is what I would do literally, either Friday after school or Monday before school. Hey parents, this is Matt Thomas, your son or daughter's English teacher. Just want you to know, today we're doing Romeo and Juliet. We're doing it all week. Here's what we're doing exactly. Here's exactly what I'm going to ask the students to do. Next week I'm going to have them write and perform their own play in class. Please don't tell them. It's kind of a surprise, blah, blah, blah. Minute and a half email message every single week. Here's the thing. I used to be the email guy to parents, and I'm like, this is great, I'm doing it. The issue though is, tone is so difficult to interpret during emails and texts. What'll happen is your brain, your parents are going to read the email in the same tone that they're used to. So if they're used to dealing with that one teacher, oh my gosh, your son's this, blah, blah, blah. When they read your email, they're going to read it in that voice. That's why it's so important to do video messages. So when they hear like, hey guys, Matt Thomas here, oh my gosh, your son and daughter are so great, here's what I need, blah, blah, blah. When I have to send an email, they're gonna read it in my tone, they're gonna see my smiling face. When I do have to call up a parent or send an email because of an issue, parents are totally on board with you. And I have scripts, I have scripts that I use if you want them. Email me, I'll send it out to you. It's the whole like, hey, because parents want to know like, is my son and daughter in trouble or not? And you're like, look, your son's not in trouble, but can you please ask him to keep the phone away when I blah, 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 blah. I have a whole script for you, so whatever you need. So I got into, that's my behavioral psychology background. I went to school to be a psychologist, changed to be a high school teacher, but here's where my neuroscience comes from. It's because of this girl. So this is my daughter, her name's Sophia, she's 7 years old. She means the world to me. And I'm going to be real with you because we're all teachers. We know as teachers that some parents aren't the best. And so when my wife was pregnant, I told myself, I said, I got like Eminem, I got one shot at this, right? One shot to be the best dad I can be. So I read all the Baby in the Brain books, like all of them, Happiest Baby on the Block, all that stuff. And I don't remember which one, but one of them introduced me to Wonder Weeks or developmental leaps. If you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So if you're not sure what they are, it literally is a book that maps out week 1, here's what's going to go on with your child. Week 2, week 7, week 35, whatever. Here's what happens when a tantrum happens in their brain. Here's how to stop it. Here's what to do in the first place to where it doesn't happen. And I told my wife, I said, this is the answers to the greatest test on earth. Like how to raise a child. And she wasn't as excited as I was. She's like, okay. I'm like, no, seriously, this is amazing. She's like, just highlight it for me. So I did, and she never read it. But she's an amazing mother anyway. But the thing is, I got so excited because as a teacher, you always hear, I teach high school, I always would hear like teachers complain about the same thing. Oh, teenagers, they always talk back to me, they're not organized, they don't know long-term consequences, they don't understand their actions, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, maybe there's a reason for that. So I started deep diving into teenage brain development. And there absolutely is a reason for everything our teenagers do. And it's based on developmental stages. And so when I realized that, I went, oh my gosh, that jumped me down this rabbit hole. Neuroscience, neurodidactics, neuroeducation. And so the takeaway from all this is that students go through developmental leaps. But when our teenagers do it, it's not as cute as when a baby does it, right? Yeah. But we want them to go through that. Because if not, they're going to be the uncle that sleeps on our couch forever. We want them to seem like they're challenging us, but they're not. I'm going to explain as we go on why teenagers do what they do. And I will say, for you elementary and middle school teachers here, everything here, I teach teenagers, so I'm going to reference teenagers. Everything applies to our elementary and middle school students, because unless there's a developmental issue, the brain develops at a very consistent rate, all throughout the world. So as long as there's not a developmental issue, then it does. So everything that I say for high school, just put it in your perspective of your students, right? The age there. So the other takeaway is, as I mentioned before, I'm a complete introvert, but I'm so interested in this stuff. This is why I do it. So you can do anything if you're interested enough in it. Your students can do anything if they're interested enough in it. And we all know those teachers are like, yeah, but my students can't do that. And you're like, no, they can, seriously. As long as you make it accessible and you get them interested enough in it. And as where's our EL teachers at? EL, multilingual, ESL, they're okay, all right. Yeah. So we're there, right? We do our stuff, and then there's always the other teachers that, well, my ELs can't do that. No, they totally can. Just make the information accessible. We'll talk about that too. So here's my disclaimer, because I know there's some in the room. So here's my disclaimer for the neuroscientists in the room, because I don't want to lose my neuroscience card. Today, I'm going to be sometimes neuroscience-y, sometimes I'm going to be very teachery. And they can be different sometimes. So here's the thing. Neuroscientists know how the brain works. Teachers, we're the art of teaching, right? That's what we need. So neuroscientists, unless they've been in a significant amount of time in a primary or secondary classroom, they have a very difficult time applying what they know to actual classroom activities that we can use tomorrow. Because, and I don't mean if they're college professors, I mean, middle school, elementary school, high school. Because they know how the brain works, but we don't need everything from neuroscience, right? We don't need how oligodendrocytes create myelin in the central nervous system. That doesn't apply to teaching Johnny how to read. But if we can take what they know, how the brain works, apply that to what we need, take strategies that work in the classroom, then it's the best of both worlds. We need to talk sometimes. We need to talk a lot. The issue is this, and I'm going to say this respectfully because I'm a teacher, 19 years like many of you. The education system kind of sometimes makes stuff up. And we make stuff up because, yay for making stuff up. We make stuff up because we're not given all the information. So what happens is neuroscientists know how the brain works. But what they use is they use metaphors to make very complex information more accessible. Which is what we do as great teachers. I'm an English teacher. If my students aren't getting it, it's on me. So then I use metaphors and analogy to make them go, oh, now I get it. I don't simplify. I make it more accessible. That's what neuroscientists do. Awesome. But the thing is, when they create metaphors, a metaphor is not meant to be the truth. It's meant to be a representation of it. And so education takes that metaphor and makes it the truth. Not the actual information. Let me give you an example. How many of you have heard of the amygdala hijack? Okay, cool. All right, okay. So the amygdala hijack says when a student is afraid, right? Fear lives in the amygdala. And when the student's afraid, the amygdala overreacts and hijacks the brain and new learning can't happen. Okay, the amygdala hijack is a metaphor. It's not really a thing. The amygdala is one of the most misunderstood parts of the brain, or I should say maybe oversimplified. Because the amygdala, one of the things it's in charge of, many things, is that it has to decide whether or not something's valuable enough to remember. Especially if it first happens, if it's a novel experience, it decides if something's valuable enough to remember. So if it's something new, the amygdala is on high alert. The amygdala is as active when you're happy as when you're angry. Fear doesn't live in the amygdala. Emotions are created by all these different things fall around the brain. I will say too, neuroscience research is happening so quickly that 5 to 10 years, 10 or so more years ago, a lot of the neuroscience research is outdated, right? It's being updated so quickly. The reason I say this is, the amygdala doesn't hijack anything. But all that metaphor, even though it's not accurate, the end result is the same. If someone's distracted, new learning can't happen. So if our students come in being yelled at by their mom or dad, being yelled at by a previous teacher, their grandmother's in the hospital, they broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend or both, if they're coming to our class and they're so distracted, their amygdala is saying, this is a new experience for me, this is what's important. Yeah, you're trying to teach me Romeo and Juliet, but I feel that this is more important than Romeo and Juliet. And that's nothing that the students can control. Joey, pay attention. It's Joey's brain, not Joey. Does that kind of make sense? I don't know if I said it.
Yeah.
So we're like, treating him like he's a dog, and his brain is going, Grandma's in the hospital, I don't care about you. So as a teacher, we should understand that. Joey's grandma's in the hospital. And ways we can get around is, hey, Joey, dude, I'm so sorry. You want to step outside? Can we get some water? You can go use the restroom real fast. It's all good. Or put your head down. I understand. Adnan walks in. I don't care. Joey's who I care about. So the point is, what we need as teachers is to focus that end result and not create too many more distractions for the student. Joey, oh my gosh, sorry about your grandma, but you need to pay attention. Now everybody else is looking to see how much of a jerk I am. I'm creating distractions all over my classroom. My point to this, though, is that neuroscientists use metaphors. Teachers sometimes take that as the truth. Even if it's correct or not, the end result tends to be. One other thing, too, is neuroscientists tend to be very general. So we go, okay, neuroscientists, tell me something I can use for my classroom. And they say, stress impacts learning. How many of you have ever heard that before? It absolutely does. Well, we go, thank you, Captain Obvious.
Yes.
What do I do with Johnny third period tomorrow? They say, oh, I know. Whatever you're doing that's stressful, stop doing it. It doesn't help me. What do I need? So we do need to talk a lot. Hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll have the knowledge to be able to understand that. What we need. So I'm going to do these like break the learning myth. You like the break? I thought that was clever. Sorry. Break the learning myth. So here's the thing. There's a learning myth that all students need to speak out. And the phrase is, all students need to be heard. They want to be heard. True, we just don't want to say it in public. I love being heard if I have to write it out too. But here's the thing, if you're like me, so there's two types of learners. Now again, that's a metaphor. Don't take it as truth. The end result's the same. There's many different types of learners, but the two types I'm going to focus on are the observers and reflectors. That's me. I sit in the back. I do, one, because I have long legs. Two, I like to observe everything. Take everybody's input in. I'll look at you when you're talking, just not right now because it's weird to look at somebody.
I know you're like staring.
I look at foreheads. That's my coping skill. Okay, cool. All right. So, I like to observe and reflect. Take everybody's opinion. Give me an hour to think about it. Then I can come up with something. If a teacher forced me to speak out, I'll go tunnel vision. I might say something. I hope it's right. And then I'm going to reanalyze all the words that I remember I used, but I probably won't remember everything. That's what our students do if they're observers and reflectors. Then there's speakers, there's reciters and speakers. There's ones that need to speak and add on. Many of you are like that. Let me ask first, where's our observers and reflectors in the room? Oh, thank you. I was happy. That's so awesome. Thank you. Then there's the others that are the ones where like I need to respond and speak out. And that's how they learn best. How many of you have those students where every time you ask a question, boom, their hand goes right up? Awesome. Hey, keep those. You want those. Those are amazing. Admin respectfully, because they're told from somewhere else. No, if someone responds too much, you have to say, look, Johnny, you're talking too much. Let me give someone else a turn. That's going to shut that student down. Because that's how that student learns. You want those students. There's nothing wrong with like the hand goes up and you're like, who else? No one. Yeah. Joey, thank you so much. Thank them for responding. Students want to know that what they're doing is accurate. Thank them for it so they can keep responding. People will go, how do I get my students to respond? Well, a lot of it's environmental, right? Creating that environment to where they can respond. Let your responders respond because the way they learn, I observe, reflect, think about it, then I process it and do it. they see it, or they hear it, they need to say it back, and then add on to it. Now they're creating a connection. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. That's how they learn. That's also sometimes the students that talk when we're talking, we don't want them to. When they talk to their friend and the friend laughs and we get mad at them, they're making a connection. So if I'm talking about the nurse being like comic relief or whatever, and the guy in front goes, dude, your mom's a comic relief. They're making a connection. And I'm like, Joey, quit talking. That's how Joey learns. We just sometimes need to have patience with that. So, the takeaway, even though neurometaphors aren't always accurate, the end results tend to be. Right? Distractors will stop a student from learning, even if the amygdala hijack is just a metaphor. It's not necessarily accurate. And it's okay to let your observers be observers and your speakers be speakers. Don't get caught up in the equity sticks, the equity cards, the forcing everybody to learn. Don't get caught up in that, because you want the observers and reflectors to feel comfortable in your classroom. You want the speakers to not be shut down when you're telling them you talk too much. You're not saying that, but when you go, let's let someone else talk, that's how they're feeling. So keep that going there. All right, so great teaching is divided into two things, environmental and structural. We're going to hit both of them today. I want to have a textbook talk with you really quickly. Okay, so I was the EL lead at my school for many years, and I would have teachers go, dude, my students are asleep, they're not responding, I'm kind of bored, what do I do? And the first time I ask them is, how's your curriculum? And they go, it's kind of dull. And I'm like, well, let me tell you why. So I was having a conversation with a gentleman. First of all, this story's anecdotal. So that's not, researchers are like, that's not real research. It's anecdotal, take it however you'd like. I was having a conversation with a gentleman in one of the workshops. And he worked for one of the big textbook companies. He wouldn't say which one, but he said I would know who it is. You all would know who it is. And he said he and his team are responsible for putting together the stories for these textbook companies, for one of the curriculum. And he said that his managers told them, you have to make the curriculum as vanilla as possible. That's the term they used, vanilla as possible. And he said because there's millions of dollars riding on these textbooks. And now if you're an English teacher, you know the textbooks don't teach like the specifics on how to write. Write a short story. Yeah. But it doesn't say like this. My other mom owned a publishing company for years. You just learn like how stories are written, right? To attract, I don't mean falling action, rising action, all that stuff. You have to make it more accessible anyway for students. But things like writing an argumentative essay, use a hook. Yeah. They don't use the term hook in the writing world, right? It's a general term that gets recycled. So here's the thing. Now, in the writing world, how are you going to catch their interest? That's what a hook is. But let's say that publisher went with, we use in our district AXIS form of paragraph writing, argument, example, explanation, significance. Others use ACEs, some use SIRS, some use whatever, right? Jane Schaefer, Step Up to Writing, whatever. Let's say the textbook was specifically promoting AXIS, and your district used something else, your district will not buy that textbook. So he said, curriculum is meant to be dry, because we as the teachers use it as a tool to support our instruction, not to drive the instruction. So imagine using a textbook which is supposed to be dry, so that it doesn't you can't have great teaching strategies, because what if your district isn't into that? Right? So it's very general. Imagine having a teacher that opens up, hey guys, let's go to page 1, and reads from a textbook that's intended to be dry. Then you're going to have a dry classroom and you're wondering why your students aren't participating. We're the ones that drive instruction. The textbook supports us. Then you go into it. A friend of mine, Marissa Billions, she's written 4 books. She's writing her 4th book right now. She can do a much better job teaching how to write than the textbook can, right? But she can use her expertise and then go in the textbook and find stories to support that, but not let the textbook drive. Anyway, I'm done with that. All right, what is brain-based learning? Okay, so this term comes out a lot. So you guys know when you go to stores, and it's like, hey, this is made with real fruit or made with whole wheat. It's not wrong, but it can be misleading. So all they need is 1% accuracy to call it that. Yes. So it's misleading. Brain-based learning, the term brain-based learning is misleading. You'll hear based on the brain, how the brain learns, teach the brain, research-based, based on research, studies show. It's misleading because all learning is brain-based learning. The most inefficient learning, like back in the day, many of us were probably the same, and so we went to probably the same credential program, where we would joke about the worksheet teacher, give the worksheet and then sit down all day. And that's still brain-based learning, because it involves the brain. unfortunately, it's kind of what's happening with do you guys use Canvas or whatever learning management system? Students are telling us, we want you to teach again, please. Rather than, hey, the assignment's on Canvas, then we sit down. It's kind of going back to that. But just remember, try not to fall into when someone says, if you're in charge of like ordering textbooks, my curriculum's brain-based learning, everything is. What we need as teachers, what's the most valuable to teachers is using strategies that are more efficient for the brain to learn. Make it easy. I'm going to prop some of you up. How many of your students have ever told you you're the easiest teacher that they've ever had? And you know you do good stuff, not because you don't do anything, but how many of you get that compliment? That's amazing, because that means you do it in a way that makes it very efficient. How many of you have students that say you're like the most enjoyable class, you're the safe class to come to, they love coming to you? That's amazing. You're doing it great. You're doing it to make it most efficient for their brain to learn. Achieve maximum productivity with minimum wasted effort. That's what we want when we come to brain-based teaching. So how then as teachers do we evaluate strategies that are the most efficient? We're going to look at that, and we'll know in the next 15 minutes or so. So let me share with you how the brain really learns. When I found this out, I went, oh my goodness. I'm so sorry if I'm watching you guys way. Oh my goodness. So it's not the way we think, right? So your brain, okay, the term brain makes meaning, or how the brain learns, is a metaphor, right? Not to be taken as true. Because the brain doesn't necessarily make meaning of something, that's just the term we use, but it makes predictions. Your brain's constantly predicting what's about to happen. And when it makes that prediction, it will tell your body now how to feel. Which is why Sunday nights, some teachers stress over Monday. That hasn't happened yet. Because their brain is predicting this is going to happen, and then sending a combination of neurotransmitters and we interpret those as feelings. So if you remember these three things, action, prediction, reaction. For every action that happens, your brain, their brain, is going through every experience they've had that connects with that and pushing out a reaction. So let's just use an example. You're in a room. Person walks in. You recognize the person. That's the action. Your brain's now going through every scenario you have with that person, and your brain's like, I predict you're going to have a great time with that person. They're going to make you feel good, valued. You go ahead and lower your guard, just relax, and it turns out to be your best friend, right? Now that happens in like milliseconds. Different scenario. Person walks into the room. You look at that person. Your brain's now going through everything experience you've had with that person and spits out a reaction. Every time that person comes in, he's a jerk to you. He makes you feel bad. He demeans you. He embarrasses you. So your brain is like, I'm going to raise your heart rate a little bit in case you have to run out of the room. I want you to put your guard up. You can't be open with this person, so like be careful what you say because they're going to gossip about you. That happens with everything we do. Right? If you've ever seen me speak before on this, the fact that you're back hopefully means that like you saw my name and went, oh, that guy's actually kind of cool. And it predicted that you would learn something, right? And so everything we do, now imagine this. Imagine our students, who, I'm an English teacher. What if a student has never had, like, I'm going to define a good English teacher. Define it however you'd like. But someone who made that person feel valuable. So all through middle school, maybe they just didn't have good English teachers. Maybe they never learned, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're going to come to my 9th grade English class. The action is that they're taking English. Their brain's going, oh, you're going to hate that class. And now they come in feeling that way because their body's like preparing them. My wife's a middle school math teacher. For you math teachers, that happens quite a bit. Students come to you already not liking math, and they've never met you before. The amazing thing is that every experience we have with our students, with any of us, is an opportunity to either enhance their prediction or change their prediction. So let's go back to the scenario. The guy who's a jerk comes in, and your brain's like, oh my gosh, he's a jerk. Like, heart rate, right? Like, protect yourself. And what if the guy comes up and he goes, you know what, I gotta tell you, I'm so sorry. I've been a jerk to you. It's been on me. I'm going through all these issues in my life. It's not you, it's me. Please forgive me. I promise every time I see you, I'm gonna do better. What if that person did that? That's called learning. Because our brain does not like to be wrong with its predictions. If our brain is wrong with its predictions, we define that as learning. So now, next time that person comes in, your brain's going to take that last experience and put that in as like a main determining factor. Person comes in, your brain's like, hey, last time he apologized to you, you're not going to be on the defensive so much. He's actually kind of a cool person. And then every time you see that person and they're really cool to you, your brain's now changing their prediction. That's brain plasticity. That's why when they say, like, you can't teach old dog new tricks, no, that's not accurate at all. And so the reason I'm saying that is, with our students who come in that never liked our class in the first place, every day, including this Monday, if you have an issue with a student, every experience that student has with you is an opportunity to change that prediction. And so it might take a while. Maybe your students have adults in their life that are jerks, and you're the only adult that cares about them. So it may take a week, 2 weeks, a month, a semester. It may take all year to change his view on English class or you. But I promise you this, if you've written 2 referrals on a student, but you do everything to make that student feel great in class and teach that student well, he or she probably gotten 10 from other teachers. Right? They're going to be better for you. For you. So, the takeaway, please be understanding as to why people act the way they do. If you have a student that comes in and treats you kind of poorly, it's not on you. It's on everybody else in their life that's made them feel that way. Their brain is predicting that you're going to do it too. So, every interaction is an opportunity to enhance or perform a prediction, to make everyone feel welcomed. Try to create that positive environment every time you're with someone. So, break the learning myth. All right, learning styles. You guys learn learning styles? If you're like me, we went to those workshops. Learning styles aren't a thing. It's a metaphor. There's no visual learners and auditory learners, etc. Learning modalities are a thing. Reading, writing, speaking, listening, kinesthetic, visual, that is a thing. But learning styles aren't. Again, even though the metaphor is not accurate, the end result's okay. Your son is not a visual learner, unless there's learning developmental issues. That's different. But what happens, the reason that can be a bad thing is some students tune out, like, I'm a visual learner, if I don't see it, I don't learn it. No, that's not accurate at all. Because here's the thing, if someone's like, I'm a visual learner, and so true story, if I were to tell you the story about when I first met my wife on our first date, she broke my thumb. I don't need to show you a picture. Right? So if you're like, girlfriend, wife, thumb, first date, I don't get it. Oh, now I get it. I'm a visual person. No, that's not how it is. But what we do need to understand is we should teach the way it was intended to... No, we need to teach the way we intended it to be presented. So if you're doing Romeo and Juliet, a play needs to be watched. A graph needs... I'm so sorry, I'm still blocking you guys. I'm so sorry. A graph needs to be shown. Notes need to be shown while they handwrite to create that neural pathway. The brain doesn't understand this. So just putting our notes on canvas isn't the most efficient way. We want to have it up so they can see it, write it while I'm explaining to it. I'm hitting the different modalities. Right? So information should be presented the way it was, should be taught the way it was meant to be presented. So our takeaway, I just said that, sorry. Information needs to be taught the way it was intended to be presented. Right? If it's a song, it needs to be heard, not just looked up with the song lyrics. And try and include at least 3 of these modalities each lesson-ish. I say ish because I'm an English teacher. Some days we just have to write the essay. We get that. But like when you're saying this, so maybe I'll start by telling a relative story that ties in with my students, whatever I'm doing for the day. Then I'm going to have them reflect and write about their experience. Then I might have some of them share out or read an article that focuses on whatever we're talking about. Then I might have them get up and do a purposeful 4 corners. So I hit like 4 different modalities. That will keep the class flowing. Have you guys ever heard of the flow, the brain flow? So what it means is this. If you're so into something for so long, time is not something you think about. It's just like watching a movie, you're like, dude, it's over already? We want that for our students. We want to keep our students busy, keep them engaged and excited, and then that way it's like, wow, class is over. How many of you have ever had students go, class is over? That was awesome. You did it right. Do that. Do that every time. That's amazing. So, now, that all being said, how does the brain learn? I'm going to use a tree metaphor. Remember, it's a metaphor. There's not trees in our brains, but it's a metaphor to help make it more accessible. So every time you learn something new, a neural pathway is sprouted in your brain. It's like a tree branch. So every time you get a new tree branch sprouting in your head, for it to stay there, if you're gardeners, you got to water it, right? To water it, you have to root the information into something else. Or, and this is a real term, I'm not making this up, synaptic pruning will occur. Meaning you're going to forget. Your students will forget. That's why we all went to college, we learned a bunch of stuff, and we only use what has been rooted in our brains because we use it for work or for pleasure or whatever it is. So this is why, as an English teacher, vocab without context doesn't work. 20 words on Monday, test on Friday will never work. Random, that's why grammar is hard to remember. It's not rooted with anything. Math teachers, I love you. My wife's a math teacher. I know your struggle. That's why math is so difficult to learn. Because math is very situationally specific. Right? That's why the challenge is there. You look at the math scores, it's been flat for however many years. Right? So I feel for you guys. You guys are in such a challenging position because you're teaching something that the brain doesn't always connect with. So what we need to do as teachers, I'm again using the metaphor, we need to water the tree. And the way we do that is we, go over the information, we root it to something. I'll use an example. Focus on the less is more. If you're into gardening, my wife is, too much water apparently is not good for certain plants. Less is more. Finland and Singapore use the less is more model. We're just teaching too much stuff. Let's cut back a little bit. So, how the brain remembers efficiently. First of all, we need to spotlight the information on what our students need to know. If you teach science and you're looking at chapter 4 and you're like, what do you want your students to know? Everything. No, what are the 4 things you need from chapter 4? Like, make it simple for them. Then, this is how their brain will remember it. If their brain didn't remember it, sometimes it's not on the students at times, it's their brain doing it. We have to spotlight the information, tell them specifically what we want them to know. Then, the brain has to decide if they think that information is valuable enough. There's where that amygdala comes in. Is it valuable enough to remember? If not, I'm not going to waste my time remembering it. How do we make it valuable for them? Connect it to something they already know. How many of you already knew that every time you learn something new, a neural pathway is created? Awesome. Now it's reinforced. You already know that, right? So I'm just reinforcing what you already know. You're going to remember it tomorrow. If it follows a pattern, brains love patterns. The brain wants to be very efficient. That's why, respectfully, we tend to buy the same coffee every day. Unless you're like, I do it different every day. It's because that's your pattern. Some people tend to date the same people. This is their pattern. They teach class the same way because they're comfortable. It's patterns. Our brain likes patterns. In English, for you English teachers, I love teaching English. To me, I think it's easy to justify. English, it's easy to teach a pattern. In my case, I do the Axes format of paragraph writing. We write, please don't throw things at me, we write over 20 essays in my class a year. Before I go, dude, that's terrible. No, I hide the essays. I don't call it an essay. I call it other things, like the circle of friends where they have to take themselves and 4 of their friends and then identify which one plays what role in their lives, and they give an example, and they explain how that example can impact their future, etc. It sounds like an essay. But I hide it. And so we're doing a formula every single time. And also, one secret for you English teachers, if you ever wonder why students have a hard time writing intro paragraphs and thesis statements and conclusion paragraphs, in 9th grade they come to me, middle school teachers, you've taught that a million times. They still have struggles when they come to my class. It's because that's not a pattern that our brain accepts. Right? We don't talk to our friends with intro paragraphs. Hi friend, my name's Matt, as you well know. We're going to talk about ninjas and barbecue and football. And then when we're done talking, we don't go, as I've clearly stated. We don't do that. But we ask them to do that when they write their essays. It's a pattern our brain doesn't know. We also, if you ever had these students, they go, look, I know what I want to say, but I just can't write it down. I'm having trouble writing it. They're telling the truth. Their brain knows the pattern of conversation. Hey, I don't care that you really know the stuff. I need you to write it in this format. Make it shorter or extend it. I don't know. Put here and here. And their brain's like, I don't get it. I thought you just wanted to see if I learned this stuff. So I would say it's okay if you're like, my students are having trouble writing, you could be like, just tell me the answer. Do you know it? And then look at grading that way. That's a personal, grading philosophy for you, whatever you'd like. But also, it's got to make a real-world connection. So I teach English because I was a business owner. I looked at how to run a business. We do close reading with business proposals. For 9th grade, one of our standards is business letter writing. So I'll show my students how to write complaint letters based on a complaint letter that I wrote when I was 20 to a pizza place. It sounds stupid, but I got 5 free pizzas out of it. So I show my students argumentative methods of persuasion, right, audience, and then I have them write their own complaint letter based on my real complaint letter. Because as teachers, right, we're like, hey, this is great writing, but just rewrite it in your own way. They're like, but I don't know how to do that yet. But if you take mine, it's plagiarism. I'm like, wait, you want to model good writing, like let them use your stuff to model it. The more they do it, the better it gets. But I had one student named Armando who goes, Mr. Thomas, remember the complaint letter we did a few days ago? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I gave it to my sister. She used it for KFC. They gave her a stack of sides and chicken coupons. And I'm like, what was wrong with her order? And he goes, nothing. She just wanted to see if it worked. And no joke, I've got students who've gotten free Kindles, Magic Mountain passes. One girl got 2 million coins on a video game. And I'm like, is that a lie? She goes, And I don't know. The point is we want to give our information to them, make it valuable for the real world. Also, we need to make it interesting. That is so huge. So, that being said, let me jump in. I'm going to tell you that the two biggest influences on student success. So my friend Jeremy, last year he became an assistant principal for a charter school in San Diego. And he goes, Matt, can you do some professional development for my teachers? I'm like, yeah, what do you want to talk about? And he goes, what are the two biggest influences on student success? He goes, no, sorry, I didn't say it. Sorry, I'm screwing this up. He said, what's the biggest influence right now that will make the biggest impact on student success? And I said, curiosity. There's no close second. Get your students curious and interested in the material. And the curiosity leads to interest. Interest leads to motivation. Motivation, they'll learn themselves, right? Intrinsic learning, that's what we want. And the reason being is we're born with an innate curiosity. Now, as I'm looking, I'm going, okay, rather than going in, would you trust me that we're born with an innate curiosity? The only reason being is because I was going to explain it, but I need to move forward on that. So I have a video coming out, I'll show you my YouTube channel, that deep dives into curiosity. We're born with that, right? We wave our hands in front of our eyes and our feet in front of our eyes when we're born because we're curious. We roll over because we're curious. We crawl because we're curious. We think it's fear of missing out. It's not, it's curiosity. Have a box in your room, tell all the students they can look in the box except for Joey. Joey, you can't look in the box. He's going to want to look in the box because he's curious. We're born that way. So the reason, humbly, and I hope, the reason you're here this morning is because you're curious. I hope.
Yes.
Hopefully the reason you're still here is because I kept you interested. The interest is on us. We got to spark their curiosity now. We only hold it for 2 or 3 seconds or 2 minutes. Now we got to keep them interested. So and there's a video. Sorry, that. If you want to see more, click the video. Once you've got them curious, so anyway, so my friend Jeremy, he goes, okay, Matt, that's cool. Curiosity, that's great. What about, I was thinking more like total teacher efficacy in the PLC process. And I went, dude, I said, that's a you thing. He's my friend, I've known him forever, I can talk to him like that. That's a you thing. Teachers don't care, students don't care. So if admin is trying to preach something that you're like, I'm not really into, they're not building that curiosity there. And so with our students, with our clients, we've got to keep their interest and curiosity. So he goes, great, once you got them interested, now what? Enjoyment with achievement. So, Dr. Scott Boland created this little arc here. His research shows that the more familiar a person is, the more pleasure they get. So anyone play guitar? I should say an instrument, not just an instrument. Okay, all right, so imagine this. You're just starting, and you're playing the same song day one. And by a year, it's the same song. 2 years, the same song. You're not getting any better. You enjoy it, but you're not getting any better. Then you're going to stop enjoying it and stop doing it. So there's a high correlation with how familiar something is and how much a student enjoys it. If it's not familiar to them at all, they're like, I don't get it, I tune out. Or they're like, dude, I got this, and you're going over too much. They tune out. So we want to make it to where our students are learning something and getting better and feeling that they're getting better with it. Video game designers know this. They hire neuroscientists for a reason for this. They make it just a little bit difficult and get it a little better so they want to keep going there. So when education always talks about we need to keep our students engaged, this is what they're really talking about. So the takeaway, the two greatest determining factors of success. Your students have to be interested in what they're doing. You got to get them interested. And once you've got them, you want to make it feel like they're getting better at it, right? Don't like, all right, you guys are great with like pre-algebra, here's some calculus, right? Or what I don't know if that works. It's a math analogy. Sorry, it's out of my element. Right? Little bits, increments. Go back and review stuff in little increments there. So that's what we want. So how do we do that? All right, forget amygdala hijack. I already broke it. There's your, if you want proof, there's your happy, there's your anger, same activation for the amygdala. Those are for the, all right, anyway. So let's get into, now, I brought this up. So how do teachers evaluate teaching strategies? If brain-based learning is a term that it works with everything, here's what we need to do. trying to be on your way there. If a curriculum, a strategy, a lesson is based on how the brain learns the most efficiently, if it includes some form of curiosity, every day spark the student's interest. Does your information that you're teaching connect somehow to their prior knowledge, something that they already know? Hey, I'm going to teach this new concept. Remember this back in 3rd grade? Yeah. There's your connection. If you're, this is so stupid. This is my brain popping things in. If you're teaching like biology to elementary schools and you bring in like a turtle or whatever, and you're like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you sing that song, now you've connected the 3 of you, sorry. Now you've connected to what they already know, right? Prior knowledge. Is your lesson based on some sort of patterns? The brain likes patterns. Can you say, hey, remember this from this other thing? Oh yeah, I do. Can you apply it to the real world? Students will gravitate and hold on to something that has a real world connection. So in your lessons, you want to try to have at least one, if not more of these, right? And base your lessons on it. I'm going to give you example lesson plans for all the core classes at the very end of this too. So here's our takeaway. Be aware of how the term brain-based learning is used. Evaluate programs and strategies and activities based on the most efficient ways for the brain to learn. Because remember, all learning is brain-based learning, right? As long as it involves the brain, it's brain-based learning. Make sure there's curiosity, prior knowledge, patterns, of real-world activity in there. How many of you do project-based learning? Like you make your students do a bunch of projects. Awesome, do more of that. Project-based learning is amazing. Include those strategies in your lesson plans too. I do have a video on why project-based learning is one of the most efficient ways to teach. And cross-curricular instruction. If you co-teach with other teachers, being able to apply it in both subjects, right, is amazing. So, that being said, I want to revisit great teaching equals environmental and structural. Environmental, have your students feel great, right, how they feel, sorry, just checking the time. And structural, how you structure your lesson plans. So, how do we create an effective learning environment? This is so important, right? If you've got these 2 down, great learning will happen. How do you create an effective learning environment? There's 4 steps to this. 1, model the behavior that you want. It sounds so simplistic, but I'll tell you why. Teenagers model adult behavior. Kids do it too. I teach teenagers all day. Teenagers model adult behavior. If you ever saw me speak a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have said it's because of mirror neurons. Neuroscientists now know that's not a thing, it's a metaphor. They then call them mirror regions. Again, neuroscientists, we can't support mirror neurons, mirror regions. But what we can support is this. When your students come to your class, that's an action. They will predict how you're going to treat them. And they're going to react the same way you treat them. So, when you're in class, you want to model how you want your students to speak to you. Say please. Say thank you. Right? Prop them up. Hey, Joe, do me a favor. Do you mind picking that trash up? I know you didn't drop it, but do you mind picking it up? Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thank them for what they do. Joey, do me a favor. I'm going to project this. Do you mind dropping the lights, please? Thank you. Please and thank you with everything. I'm going to share an example with you. Okay, so a common teenage thought is, teenager says, look, if you want respect from me, you got to respect me first. An adult will say, no, I'm the adult. You respect me first, I've earned it, then I'll give you respect. If you line that argument up, it's the exact same argument. Because as a high school teacher, my job is to make my students better adults. Not make them better teenagers, they're already teenagers. Make them better adults. As a side note, we're all teachers. We know that our jobs are to make this student, person better. If they're not there yet, we can't be mad at them yet. We're helping, right? We're working together to build them up. So you always want to keep that in mind when we get frustrated. Why aren't you blah, 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 blah? 11-year-old? It's like, they're 11, right? Like our job is to make them better. We can't get mad if they're not there yet, but that's beside the point. So, I'm going to give you my trash example. All right, so a daughter comes home. Mom and dad both work, come in. Dad's on the couch. Mom says, hey, honey, can you take the trash out? The dad's like, I'll do it later. I'm tired. The mom goes, okay, right? The mom then goes to the daughter. Hey, daughter, clean your room. I'm tired. I'll do it later. Oh, no, you won't do it later. You don't talk back to me. You'll do it now. The daughter's confused because she sees mom and dad talk that way. So she thinks that's what you're supposed to do. That's why when people think teenagers talk back, they're not necessarily talking back. They're speaking most likely the way that you're speaking to them. And they're modeling it back. And it's not wrong. I'm not defending. I'm just saying that's how it is. And so we want to understand that. And the whole do as I say as I do, I mess it up. But I think you know what I mean. Right? Model with your students how you want to speak to them. It may take some time. Like if you treat them well, treat them respectfully. When they come into class, smile. Yo, Joey, what's up? Good seeing you. Oh my gosh, you're wearing a Motley Crue shirt. Dude, I love Motley Crue. Worst concert I've ever been to, though. They wear a baseball shirt. They wear some whatever. You're like, dude, nice shoes. Any Doc Martens? Anyone wearing Doc Martens in here? Any Docs? No? Forget that whole thing. All right, so I always say, like my students wear Doc Martens. Like, dude, those boots are awesome. Because as a kickboxer, right, those are like kill someone's shin. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, but there's a connection. You want to create a connection with all of your students. How many of you have heavy metal or punk fans in your class? Okay, cool. If they know that if you love heavy metal and they know it, you're now their favorite teacher. Make those little connections with every single student. Dude, those are amazing boots. Now, I'm her favorite teacher. I mean, I got to do more than just like her boots, but you know what I mean, right? You got to make that connection. So, it may take some time, but please, some teenagers, some kids have very challenging adults in their life, so please keep that in mind. And make sure, and this will really answer when people go, my students don't raise their hand in talking class. Do more of this. Thank them. Give them rounds of applause. Smile when they come in. Imagine this. You walk into the room, everyone goes, dude, Joey's here. Joey feels good. Joey walks in the room and gets quiet. And was like, damn, Joey's here. That one student feels that way probably every day, 6 out of 7 teachers. Not you guys. The other teachers that do that, right? You guys are like, Joey, what's up, right? Make them feel good in class. So, the first step, model the adult behavior. Second step, calm their distractions. If this were 4 years ago, I would have said calm the amygdala. New neuroscience shows the amygdala is not necessarily that's how it works, but whatever. The point is calm the distractions. Here's the thing. The reason students tend to seem overly emotional is because the amygdala does get overactive when something new happens, and it does help regulate things, and it does help, correlate those emotions, those feelings. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh my gosh, matures at age 17-ish. The frontal lobe, which is the part of the brain that focuses on many things, including organization, analysis, doesn't mature until late 20s, early 30s. That's why many of us who went back to college 10 years after high school found college much easier. So keep this in mind. Our teenagers are working with something that overreacts on everything. You asked me to put my phone away. Oh my gosh, you hate me. No, I should put my phone away. They're working with an amygdala that's at full strength. They're working with the prefrontal cortex, frontal lobe that's not even 80% mature. Understand that. So please, and then we're asking our 9th graders to write full analysis on their essays when they're not even there yet. If you're a 9th grade teacher, I teach mainly on format and effort on analysis. I'm like, let's do our best with analysis. By the time they're 11th grade and senior people, they can write much better. Senior people. Senior students, right? By the time you're 65, there you go. But yeah, so keep that in mind too. They're working with fully mature amygdalas. Third step, dopamine. This is huge. All right, so model the behavior, calm the distractions. Don't be the one that your student is distracted on your information. I said that wrong. Don't be the one that won't allow your students to learn new information because you're distracting them by whatever. Third thing, create dopamine for your students. Dopamine oftentimes is said that it's the feel-good hormone. First of all, dopamine's in you feeling good and feeling bad. Dopamine does tons of things. But it really focuses on anticipation. So, Christmas is coming up, Hanukkah's coming up, holidays is coming up, whatever, you're like, woohoo, dopamine. Vacation, woo, dopamine. This workshop, before you came in, tomorrow, you were like, dopamine, yeah, I want to be there, hopefully. Dopamine, because you're anticipating something happening. When you're on vacation, it's not dopamine, unless you're anticipating the show you're going to tomorrow or something. The reason I say that is, if we create dopamine in our students, our body likes dopamine, and we get addicted to it. So if we create dopamine, our students will look forward to our class every day. They're in second period Mrs. Johnson's class, unless there's a Mrs. Johnson in here. Okay, there's a second period Mrs. Johnson's class, and they're like, oh, Mrs. Johnson. Oh, Mr. Johnson, third period, I'm so looking forward to his class. They'll think of your class because the brain likes dopamine. The highest concentration of learning receptors are in the learning center of the brain. The highest concentration of dopamine receptors in the learning center of the brain. So when you're learning, it excites you. When you look forward to learning, it excites you. When you look forward to students look forward to your class, they'll excite you. They're going to come to your class ready to learn, as opposed to coming to your class defeated. And it's a biological thing. You want that every day. You want to make class fun. You want the students to anticipate coming to your class. Classroom management is going to be amazing because they won't mess with their favorite uncle or aunt, which is what you become then now. Now, the final step of creating that great learning environment, create dopamine in teachers. This never gets talked about, it needs to be talked about. We as teachers need to have the freedom to make every lesson we teach our favorite lesson. I talked with a teacher before, and she's like, oh, we're scripted curriculum, and the last 3 weeks of school, we're able to teach whatever we want. So I teach mythology, and I love it. I'm like, that's terrible. 3 weeks of her job, a year only, she loves. The rest, she's like, okay, let's turn the page. Every day, we need to create lessons in a way that make it our favorite to teach. I always tell my students, I don't create my lessons for you guys, I do it for me because I got to teach it 7 periods a day. And hopefully you enjoy it. But I have a stupid sense of humor, so I like do stupid stuff in class, and I like that. It'll make your career much more enjoyable, longevity. You will look forward to teaching it. You guys, okay, how many of you have that one lesson that you love that on Sunday night you're like, the students are going to love this on Monday? How many of you have that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do that every day. Now before you go, that's a lot of work. Yeah, it is. For your first year or 2 of doing it, and then for the rest of your career, you just adjust, right? You implement, change stories, whatever, but the same, but it's all set up. This needs to be talked about at every PLC. All right, what are we generally going to be teaching? All right, so next question, how are you going to make it fun? What are you going to do to spark their interest at the beginning? That needs to be talked about, right? Plan lessons to make it fun for you. And I swear to you, I swear, 95% of my lessons were my favorite lesson. The 5% of the days we have to write the essay and the district, tests and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I swear to you, I'm not making this up. I wanted, because I remember I didn't come straight from high school. I did something else for 10 years before teaching high school. I wanted to make that career like fun for me. So every day I was like, okay, what lesson can I do? Oh, that's fun for me. Oh my gosh, the students should love it. I'll show you some of the things I do. So first thing, environmental. Create that effective learning environment. Model the environment you want. Calm those distractions, right? So if Joey's distracted, be like, dude, put your head down. It's cool. Be empathetic with him, right? He'll love you for that. Create dopamine in the teachers or the students. Make that lesson exciting. Create dopamine in yourself. Make it fun for you. Okay, real quick learning myth. The thing like it takes 7 times to go from short-term memory to long-term memory, whatever. That's a metaphor based on really inaccurate information. You can learn, so don't focus on you gotta read it 7 times before you know it. Based on prior experience, context, and interest, students can learn something right away. You can learn something right away, right? Case in point, how many times, we probably studied things for 1,000 times for college and then we took the test, now we don't remember it. So that's way more than 7. So don't get caught up in the whole 7 times. Just make something that's contextual, interesting, connect to their prior experience. Your students can learn it right away. And then reinforce that. So now how do we lesson plan for success? All right, so this is the structural part. Now we've got the environment where Joey loves to come to. How many students, when they get kicked out of class, they come to you? They come, you're amazing. That's what you want. That's, yeah. So, how do we lesson plan? Remember you want to make sure we include these in our lessons. Some curiosity builder, some prior knowledge connection, some patterns or relearning that you re-go over the stuff within their brains, and a real world application. What does that look like? All right, what not to put in your lessons. Don't put busy work, students know that. You'll lose credibility as a teacher. Don't put assignments on campus and just walk away. That's the equivalent of here's your worksheet, I'm gonna go sit in the corner.
Yeah.
What to include, decide what's valuable. Can I use a Seinfeld reference? You're the masters of your domain. What's valuable for you, right? What in your classroom, what's valuable this is valuable for my students to learn. I'm gonna include this. This not so much. Less is more, I'm gonna leave that out. Right? Teach what you can justify. If the parent calls, hey, why are you teaching that in class? Oh, here's why. Joey's like, when are we gonna use this in class? Or when are we gonna use it in the real world? Here's why. But try and justify that you can teach. And find a way for the students to apply what they're learning into the outside world. So, let me talk about the learning arc. Here's the thing when it comes to lesson planning. When I taught martial arts, most of my students were kids, and you learn right away, if you don't teach kids well, you'll be out of business. Kids, after 5 or 10 minutes, their attention span's everywhere. You don't lose them, they just go somewhere else. People say oh, you lose their attention span. No, just their attention span goes elsewhere. So what you want to do, they have what's called the learning arc, I call it that. It's how long you can keep a person's attention. And it usually means how long until they know this stuff and are ready to move on. Remember that picture I showed before, that graph? Yeah. So what you want to do is this. Take your students to where they know the information, and then they're already starting to teeter. You should have switched them a minute earlier. You guys know when your students are at that point, switch it. It's like a quick write. Quick write should be 3 to 5 minutes long. Don't go longer than that. Don't do a 10-minute quick write. My master teacher, when a student taught, 25-minute quick write. And then would yell at the students for not staying on task. No. Know how long your thing's gonna go, switch it when they start to teeter, boom, go on to something else. So, when you lesson plan, try to set up your lessons this way. Have a starter designed to spark that interest. Then, have your middler, which is like your setup for your main. The main part of the lesson is what they go home and tell their parents they did. What'd you do? Oh, we wrote an autobiographical narrative. But I did other stuff before then, right? Then, have the finisher. You guys have like exit tickets and stuff. You see it? You don't need it. It's optional. The brain doesn't care. Oh, but we have to tie it up in a nice little bow. No, some lessons take a week. The brain doesn't need the ending. It's not bad. I'm not telling you it's bad. I just mean like, you don't have to have like the exit ticket. Because sometimes students just recycle what you say to get out the door. So you don't need it. So sorry guys, just don't take it. All right. So here's examples for you guys to take home. So when you're doing your lessons, the starter should be 5 to 10 minutes. Get their interest. Now you know your audience. If your students are so into the starter and it's like 20 minutes, dude, you go. You just go and go, right? But for English, it could be, so maybe I'm doing a class on autobiographical narratives and I'm going to tell them a relevant, quick story about myself. If you want your students to respond to your quick writes, tell them personal information first. I'll be like, hey guys, let me tell you about the time I got jumped outside of Carl's Jr. by 3 guys. And then I tell the story. And luckily it involves me breaking someone's leg. Now you're interested. So anyway, or, hey guys, let me tell you, I'm teaching Scarlet Letter. Let me tell you about the time I got arrested for shoplifting when I was 14. So I tell the 2-minute story. I tell the story. Then I ask them to respond and reflect on a time when they did something that they felt embarrassed by. Then we talk about like how terrible would it be if we're judged based on what we did many years ago. Then we read Scarlet Letter for a little while. Do you see how I let that flow? So I'm not going to begin to talk about math and how I would do it because I don't teach math. So just full disclosure, full respect. These are things you could do, right? That's a starter. Then, once you got your starter, you got them hooked, don't go right to your main. You have to set that main up. It could be 10 to 15 minutes of a middler. It could be like the notes, maybe reading the story or the article that they're going to have them respond to. Maybe it's math, science, instruction, etc. Whatever. I'll have you like, then go to your main. The main part of your lesson should only be 20 to 25 minutes because any more and you'll burn them out. Right? So that could be, I'll let you look, that could be whatever it is for your individual context. And then maybe you have a finisher if you need one. But again, according from the brain's perspective, you just don't need one necessarily. So if I were doing English, this might be how it looks. If I were doing math, okay, my wife's a math teacher. One day I designed a lesson for her, how I would teach math. And I would do this. I said, first I'd show an algebra rap. Boom, I'd be rapping, right? Which I do in class sometimes when we do figurative language. Because students love to see me like embarrass myself. But I would show the algebra rap thing. Then I would teach the formula. That's your middler, right? 10 minutes teaching the formula. Then have them practice the formula. Then have them create their own rap based on the formula. And I'm like, boom, mic drop. And she goes, I can't do that. Because we need to have it done by the end of the day. Or the end of the week. What is she like? Structure. And so I'm like, that's how I would teach math. So there's some examples about lesson plans. I did a video on how to teach math based on interviews from mathematicians. They said, use Legos. And I'm like, I'm not a math teacher, I don't know how, but I'd use Legos, that's what I would do. So, you can see that video, I have it on there. For science, right? Here's some example lesson plans for science. For history, I've got some example. If you're how many of you are Star Wars people? Cool, here's how I would start interest in my class. And do you post your agenda? I don't, some people do. Use the Star Wars crawl for your agenda. They're online, like, you're like, today we will be learning whatever. You're creating dopamine. I'm an English teacher, I would put puns of the day up, but I would never show it to the students. By day 3, they just figure out that I have like stupid puns. Can we do a knock-knock joke real fast? I hope I don't screw it up. Yeah? No? Okay, knock-knock.
Who's there?
Romeo.
Romeo.
I screwed it up already, let me start over, please. Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Rosalind.
Rosalind.
That's what Romeo said when he saw Juliet. Thank you, English teachers. Thank you, yeah. Anyway, so if you're a math teacher, I would start Monday. I'd have it be Monday. I would show stupid math memes for the first 5 minutes. If you're a science teacher, I would show stupid science memes for the first 5 minutes of class. That's just to spark their interest, or have them post up there so students walk in and they see it. If they know that as soon as they come in, something funny's on the board, dopamine. They're going to look forward to coming to your class. The dumbest things we can do, the students love. So, last thing, ultimately, please remember how the brain learns and remembers. How it finds value, how neural pathways are created. Teach fewer concepts, more opportunities to learn them. Please create lessons that are fun for you. I have one more quick story for you. I swear to you it's going to be valuable. So I had a conversation with a friend of mine. You know when people say something, you're like, dude, I wish I said it first. So my coworker Mark, he was a salesperson for 10 years before becoming a teacher. And we talked about how, like, because we were in the real world before education, like, I feel we bring a lot of value to it. And he says this, and I'm just going to throw this out there. He said his theory is this. So we always talk about changing education. He said most teachers, they'll do 12 years of high school, right? Well, we all 12 years of high school. Then they'll do like 6 years of, like, you know, college and degrees. And then they'll do 2 years of credential program. And then they come through, what, almost 20 years of the education system. And then when they take over their own class, they just reflect and model what they've done for the past 20 years. And so it's recycling the same thing. We're like, we need to change, but the way we're presenting it is just being recycled. And he said, like, gosh, I wish somehow we could break that. So I would say, don't be afraid to teach outside the box. And try it. And maybe one day it doesn't work. And you go, sorry guys, that didn't work. Let's try something else. Your students will love you if you're honest with them. And I will say this. Students can learn anything you want as long as you make it accessible. But we as teachers can learn anything we want too, as long as we do it and just try it, right? One, if you've never been someone to say hi to your students when they walk in, try one day and be like, hey Joey. And then by day 2, you're like, hi Joey. Hi Georgina. Right, you try it, right? Your brain plasticity, sorry, that's, I need to be more original with my names. Anyway, so please, if you're instructional coaches, if you have great lessons, can you please feel free to email me, and if we can share ideas. If you ever want me to come, my district does lend me out if you ever want to talk or come in and talk to people. Email me. Go to there's my YouTube channel. You guys are amazing. Stay in touch. And we can share ideas. Seriously, I've got a bunch of stuff. You got a bunch of stuff. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you guys. Seriously. I really appreciate it.
This is my next session.